There's an ancient secret that separates those who break under pressure from those who become stronger because of it. And today you'll discover why most people crumble at the first sign of real difficulty, while others seem immune to fear, pain, and failure. Have you ever wondered why some people push through impossible obstacles while others quit the moment things get uncomfortable? They lose 5 pounds and give up. They face one rejection and stop trying. They encounter one setback and convince themselves it's not meant to be. And here's what most people think. Those tough people were born that way. They have something I don't have. That's the most dangerous lie you can believe. Because mental toughness isn't genetic, it's built. And there's a 2,500-year-old system that proves it. In ancient Sparta, they took terrified 7-year-old boys, kids who cried, who were afraid of the dark, who had never thrown a punch, and transformed them into warriors so mentally unbreakable that they would rather die than retreat. This wasn't magic. This wasn't genetics. This was a systematic method of forging the human mind into something that cannot be broken. Before I reveal this complete system, subscribe to this channel right now, smash that like button, and tell me in the comments, what is the one area of your life where you need to become mentally unbreakable? Your career, your health, your relationships? Comment below. I read every single one. Now, let's begin.
His name was Leontes, and at 7 years old, he was the weakest boy in his village. While other children played warrior games, Leontes stayed close to his mother, afraid of getting hurt, afraid of the older boys, afraid of everything. His father looked at him with disappointment. His brothers mocked him. The village elders whispered that he would never survive what was coming. Because in Sparta, every boy at age 7 was taken from his home and entered the agoge, the most brutal training system ever created. It wasn't designed to make you strong. It was designed to break you. And only those who refused to break would become Spartan warriors. The night before he was taken, Leontes couldn't sleep. He heard stories of boys who didn't survive the training, boys who were beaten daily, boys who were starved, boys who were forced to fight each other until someone couldn't stand. His mother held him that final night and whispered, "They will try to break you. Everyone breaks eventually. Just try to last as long as you can." But she was wrong about something, and Leontes would discover what she was wrong about in the most brutal way possible. When dawn came, a Spartan warrior appeared at their door. No words, no comfort, just a look that said, "It's time." Leontes' mother released him. He walked toward the warrior, legs shaking, tears streaming down his face. As they left the village, Leontes looked back one final time. He was walking toward the one thing he feared most: pain, suffering, and the unknown. But what he didn't know was that fear was about to become his greatest teacher.
They arrived at the training grounds where 50 other 7-year-old boys stood in lines, all terrified, all wanting to go home. The head trainer, a scarred warrior named Aristos, walked through the lines slowly, studying each face. When he reached Leontes, he stopped. "This one won't last a week," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The other boys laughed. Leontes felt shame burn through his body. "Today begins apatheia," Aristos announced to the group. "You will learn that your emotions are your enemy. Your fear is worthless. Your pain is meaningless. Your comfort is a prison. We will teach your mind to become indifferent to suffering." That first day, they were given their clothing, a single thin red cloak. No shoes, no extra layers. "This is all you get," Aristos said. "Summer heat, winter cold, rain, snow, this is your only protection. Your body will learn that comfort is not required for survival." The boys were then given their first meal, a small bowl of black broth that tasted like dirt and vinegar. Leontes gagged on the first sip. "You don't like it?" Aristos asked, standing over him. "Good, you're not supposed to. Eat it anyway." For the first month, every single thing was designed to be uncomfortable. They slept on beds made of reeds that they had to gather themselves,
sharp, painful, impossible to get comfortable on. They trained barefoot on rocks and thorns. They were given barely enough food to survive, deliberately kept hungry. And every single day, they were beaten. Not as punishment, as training. Aristos would strike them with sticks across their backs, their legs, their arms. And the rule was simple. Make a sound, and you get hit twice as hard. Leontes failed this test 47 times in the first 2 weeks. Every time he cried out, the beating intensified. But something started happening around day 15. Leontes noticed that the pain didn't actually get worse. His perception of it started changing. A Stanford neuroscience study discovered something revolutionary. When you expose the brain to repeated, controlled discomfort, the amygdala, your fear center, actually becomes less reactive. After consistent exposure, the same stimulus that once triggered panic begins to trigger nothing. The pain doesn't change. Your brain's response to it does. By week 4, when Aristos struck him, Leontes didn't make a sound. Not because the pain wasn't there, but because he had learned something profound. Pain is just information. Suffering is optional. "You're learning," Aristos said when he noticed the change. "Apatheia doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you're no longer controlled by what you feel."
6 months into training, something shifted. The boys who remained, 12 had already been sent home, were no longer crying. They no longer complained about the cold, the hunger, the pain. They had achieved apatheia. Their emotions were under control. But Aristos knew this was only the beginning. "You've learned not to react to suffering," he told them one morning. "Now you will learn to persist through it. This is karteria, the art of endurance. Not surviving suffering, but thriving in it." The training intensified in ways Leontes couldn't have imagined. They were forced to run 15 miles before sunrise, barefoot on rocky terrain, carrying heavy stones. If anyone stopped, everyone started over. They were made to stand in ice-cold rivers for hours, learning to control their breathing, learning to keep their minds sharp even as their bodies screamed for warmth. They were put through combat drills that lasted 6 hours straight, with no rest, no water, fighting until they collapsed, then being forced to stand up and continue. But the most brutal exercise was called the trial of hunger. For 7 days, they were given no food, none. They were told, "A Spartan warrior must be able to function with nothing. Your enemy won't stop because you're hungry. Neither will you." During those 7 days, Leontes experienced something that changed him forever. On day 3, his body was weak, shaking, his mind foggy. On day 4, the hunger pains were unbearable. But on day 5, something broke through. His mind became crystal clear. The hunger was still there, but he was no longer thinking about it. His focus sharpened. His movements became more precise. He realized that his body was far more capable than his mind had ever allowed it to be. Researchers at Oxford studying extreme endurance athletes discovered something extraordinary. The human body is capable of 40% more than your mind tells you is possible. What we call hitting the wall is actually your brain's safety mechanism trying to protect you. But when you train past that wall repeatedly, you reprogram the limit. The wall doesn't disappear, you just learn to ignore it. By the end of the 7 days, when they were finally given food, Leontes didn't devour it like the other boys. He ate slowly, deliberately. He had learned that desperation is weakness. Control is strength. This is karteria, Aristos explained. The weak need perfect conditions to perform. The strong perform regardless of conditions. You are becoming strong. 3 years passed. Leontes was no longer the terrified boy who had entered the agoge. He could endure any physical hardship. He could control his emotions under any circumstance. But there was one final stage, the stage that separated those who were merely tough from those who were truly unbreakable. Andrea, fearless action. When Leontes turned 10, Aristos took him and the remaining boys into the forest at night. Everything you've learned until now was preparation, he said. Apatheia taught you to control your reactions. Carteria taught you to persist through suffering, but neither matters if you freeze when action is required. Tonight, you will face your deepest fear, and you will move through it. They were sent into the forest alone, with nothing, no weapons, no food, no shelter. Their task was to survive for 3 days and return. But there was something else, something Aristos didn't tell them. On the second night, Leontes was trying to sleep when he heard movement, heavy breathing, footsteps. His heart began to race. Every instinct screamed, "Run!" Then he saw it, a wolf just 20 feet away, watching him. This was the test. This was Andrea. For a moment, Leontes felt that old familiar fear from years ago when he was 7, that terror of the unknown, that desire to run back to safety. But then something happened. Instead of running, instead of freezing, Leontes stood up slowly. He didn't have a weapon, he couldn't overpower a wolf, but he had something else. He had trained his mind to act in the presence of fear. He picked up a rock, looked the wolf directly in the eyes, and roared with everything he had. The sound that came out wasn't the voice of a scared boy, it was the voice of someone who had chosen to face the fear rather than be controlled by it. The wolf, startled by the intensity and confidence, backed away slowly, then disappeared into the darkness. When Leontes returned 3 days later, Aristos looked at him differently. "You encountered the wolf," he said. It wasn't a question. "How did you know?" Leontes asked. "Because everyone does. We release it deliberately. Most boys run or hide until it leaves. But you didn't run, did you?" Leontes shook his head. "That's Andrea. Not the absence of fear, but action in the presence of it. You've learned that fear is just another sensation. It doesn't control you unless you let it."
Leontes went on to become one of Sparta's most respected warriors. Not because he was the strongest, not because he was the fastest, but because nothing could break his mind. And here's what you need to understand. You are not different from that 7-year-old boy who was afraid of everything. Right now, you're afraid of something. Afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of discomfort, afraid of what it will take to become who you're capable of becoming. But just like Leontes, you can systematically build a mind that cannot be broken. Here's exactly how you apply the Spartan method to your life right now. Stage 1. Apatheia. Start with voluntary discomfort. Every single day, do something uncomfortable on purpose. Cold showers, fasting for 16 hours, working out past the point where your mind says stop. Sitting with boredom instead of reaching for your phone. The goal isn't suffering for its own sake, it's teaching your brain that discomfort won't kill you. Modern research confirms this. Consistent exposure to controlled stress literally rewires your nervous system to be less reactive. You're not building pain tolerance, you're building emotional independence. Stage 2. Carteria. Once you can handle discomfort, it's time to build endurance. Choose one difficult thing and commit to it for 90 days with 0 exceptions. Wake up at 5 a.m. every single day. Write 1,000 words every day. Exercise every day. Study for 2 hours every day. The specific thing doesn't matter as much as the consistency. Because Carteria isn't about motivation, it's about persistence when motivation is gone. The Spartans understood that motivation is emotional and emotions are unreliable. Discipline is the ability to keep going when you don't feel like it. And discipline is built through repetition under pressure. Stage 3. Andrea. Once you have emotional control and endurance, you're ready for the final stage. Taking action despite fear. What's the one thing you've been avoiding because it terrifies you? Starting that business? Having that difficult conversation? Applying for that position? Posting your work publicly? Whatever it is, your final test is to do it anyway.
Not after you feel ready. You'll never feel ready. Not after the fear goes away. It won't. You act while the fear is present, because Andrea is proof that fear has lost its power over you. A study from the University of Pennsylvania on high-performing individuals across multiple domains found one consistent trait. They all had what researchers called trained courage, the ability to act decisively in the presence of fear and uncertainty. This wasn't inborn. It was systematically developed through progressive exposure to increasingly challenging situations. That 7-year-old boy who couldn't sleep the night before the agoge became a warrior who could stand in battle without hesitation. Not because he stopped feeling fear, but because he learned that fear is irrelevant. You have the same choice. You can continue being that person who quits when things get uncomfortable, who breaks under pressure, who lives a life dictated by fear and comfort. Or you can deliberately forge yourself into someone mentally unbreakable. Someone who doesn't need perfect conditions. Someone who doesn't quit. Someone who acts despite fear. The ancient Spartans proved that mental toughness is not genetic, it's systematic. Apatheia, Carteria, Andrea. 3 stages, 1 outcome, an unbreakable mind. If this video gave you a new perspective on mental strength, subscribe to this channel immediately, like this video, and comment below telling me what is the one thing you're going to become unbreakable at. Write it down. Make it real. Also, if you love psychology and philosophy content, check out my other channel linked in the description where I dive even deeper into these topics. I'm building something special there and would love to have you join. If you've watched until this point, you're already different from 99% of people. You have the willingness to learn what others ignore. Now go build what others won't. Enter apatheia today. Face one deliberate discomfort. Start forging your unbreakable mind. Years from now, you'll look back and realize that today was the day everything changed. Until the next video, stay unbreakable.